What a really good psychological, like, what is that, like, reverse psychology? You know your PhD. Like, it is just that, right? Like, you need to be able to not force somebody or feel like you need to control somebody to do things. I need that advice.
Right.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Social Exchange Project. This is your host, Yengyee Lor Waldinger, and today's guests are two amazing life coaches that focus on people empowerment and have two different kinds of philosophies on how they coach. So I'm going to just go ahead and hand it over to you guys. And if you guys want to talk a little bit about your coaching businesses, who you are, and what you focus on.
Okay, first off, thank you so much, Shang, for inviting me to this. I was really excited because, well, even your name, the Social Exchange, it really aligns with Faithful's Consulting's why. The why behind I do everything that I do is really to empower people, to get people to feel like, you know, they're not alone and they can be happy living the most authentic life that they want. So a little bit about me. So Faithful Consulting, I'm the CEO of Faithful Consulting. My business has been, I've been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah, you just celebrated that. I saw that.
So it's so exciting. I never would have thought I would be here, although I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to start a business. There's always that component that holds you back. And really, when you just let go of your own limiting beliefs, it's amazing what can happen. So let's see. So my PhD education is in organizational psychology. My master's is in counseling, and my bachelor's is in social work. So it's really all around people. And so my business is really all about people, human behavior in the workplace, in society, in communities, and how do we make it work? How do we make all those systems work together? And so the part that we're going to talk about today is really, I do leadership coaching. So I have life, leadership, and business. They're all essentially the same. Because when you talk about one component of life, you're talking about every component of life, because
Absolutely.
It all matters. If you're not your best in your work, you're not going to be your best in your life. If you're not your best in your life, there's issues going on in life. It interferes with your work. So
it's not quite as segmented as I think people think it is. Like, you're not just a 9 to 5, you're done with work. It carries over and vice versa.
Absolutely.
I love that.
So that's a little bit about me. I'm a single mom of 2 kids. They're here.
They're adorable.
One is 8, Faith. So the name behind Faithful Consulting really is, well, my daughter's name is Faith. I have a huge faith. And then faithful, the term faithful itself in the dictionary is really about being really faithful to people, being really good to people, delivering quality work. So I put a lot of thought into that name. And it's very personal to me. And it's like my brand, like what I put out there, it really is authentic to who I am. Whatever I do, I want to come from a space of, this is me. Mm-hmm. So
I love that.
That's a little bit about
What
me.
an intro, guys. All right. And we're going to switch gears to Coua. Thank you for coming. You had quite a drive.
I did. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to reconnect again. Like we were all talking, like we're all from Wausau. So I think that's really special in and of itself. Mm-hmm. Yengyee, so nice to meet you. And yes, that was quite the intro. So I have to follow up to that. So, okay, guys. I feel like I'm coming at this from a little bit of a different perspective. So I will answer that question, like, who am I? Well, I am someone that thought she did everything right. I went to college, I got married, I got a job, I got the husband, I got, the kids, the house, the car. But then after I had my second child, I realized, you know what? I'm actually kind of miserable. I don't like this life that I thought I wanted. Mm-hmm. So it was when I had that thought that I think that allowed self-help, self-development to enter into my life. And when I had my third child, it made me realize that I can recreate my life. But at that point, I still did not know how I can do that yet. And honestly, I didn't know how to recreate my life until 2018 after my fourth child. I'm like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm just going to tell you the secret now. The secret is that you have a freedom of choice. And that freedom, use it in your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. And once you know that you can choose how to think, how to feel, and how to act, your life will dramatically change. So I don't have anything special behind my name. It's just Coaching with Coua. It's just one of those things where it's like, okay, it's a one and done. I can always change it later if I need to. But what I do is I help corporate mothers. And what I want to do with my corporate mothers is teach her that she has freedom in her life. And that's super important to me because it ties in so perfectly with my story of who I am. I had been living the same life over and over for 3 years, so I just felt really stuck in my life. And just being aware that I was stuck in my life, that really allowed for self-development and personal development, personal growth to actually enter my life. So when that happened, I was still feeling stuck in my life, yet that made me realize by my third child that I can recreate my life. But the how, it did not really actually come until I had my fourth child. I'm a mother of 4. That's it.
You just deserve an award for that. I mean,
thanks, Shang. But yeah, after I had my fourth child, that's when I really figured out, okay, how can I recreate my life? Well, the how is because I have personal freedom, and that freedom comes in the freedom of my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. And that is what I want to teach my corporate mothers.
Now, I do have a question for you, because mindset, we talked about it just a little bit earlier, how that can really just be a flip of a switch, and that can just encompass every decision that you make, little or big, and really change the way that you view people and the way that you interact with others and the way that you see your purpose in life. Why is mindset so important?
Mindset is just everything.
It's like retraining your brain a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. And the thing is, we're not our thoughts, but our thoughts are so powerful. It's really what leads us into how we live out our everyday lives, and what we do in our daily lives, that has a big impact. Those little things add up to where you are going to be 10 years from now. And I hope that you saw in my story that, like, you could see what my recurring thoughts were, because my life did not change for 3 years. My
routine,
mindset,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
My mindset, it wasn't a growth mindset. It was fixed for 3 years. So that is why mindset is so important. I mean, do you want a fixed mindset or do you want a growth mindset?
Yeah. So, and that's so powerful, because just the difference, like the two words, like fixed or growth. Like, who wants a fixed, like planned life, or a growth mindset where you can make active decisions as you go along and be able to be empowered in what you're doing every day?
Exactly.
That's awesome. So with that, like, I read somewhere that in certain studies, 70% of your thoughts, your self-talk, are negative self-talk and negative thoughts that sometimes are random, like if you're just doing something and it's random, but it's like, and I think it's fear-based, right? How does someone who is so stuck in a routine mindset, what are the steps and strategies that they can have to just change that? Any one of you guys can answer.
Do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
Okay, yeah, and then I'll go.
Yeah. Okay, so
it sounds great, right?
Yeah.
But like, we need strategies.
For sure, 100%. So I always like to break everything down into like 3 steps, because I'm a simple person, and 3 steps is usually all I can take. Just being honest.
Me too.
So number 1, becoming aware. So once you have that awareness, now you can actually ask yourself, okay, well, what do I want to do with this new information that I have? So then you might be like, okay, I want to change this. Okay, so then how do you go about changing, your new awareness? Well, you actually have to know what you want from it then, right? Like your goal. Like clearly, once you have awareness, you're going to define your goal. Like, what is your result that you want? Define that very, very clearly. And then if you can say with 100% certainty that, yes, this is exactly what I want, and you can go all in on it, then start practicing believing that new thought, right? Because believing in that new thought is going to cause different feelings to happen. And then your feelings are going to cause you to act differently in your life.
Kind of like fake it. Is it kind of like fake it till you make it kind of thing, where you just are practicing a new way of thinking until you assimilate more and more into that mindset?
Yeah. So it's very similar. I don't know if you completed your thought. I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Okay. And actually, I want to say this to you too, because I said this to you guys like 5 times today. I stalked you guys. But in one of your videos, you talked about just that. Like a lot of the thoughts that you have are based off of history and sometimes fear. Yeah. Tell us more.
So I think to answer your question, to give people strategy, really, I would break it down. For me, in my activity, I would break it down: a default thought mindset, right? And then a growth mindset. And then it's 4 processes. And the first is, what do you see and hear? So what do I see? Okay, I see that, an example I always teach, I see that my husband comes home, for example, and all he does is go to the other room and there's dirty dishes, whatever, right? Here's what I see. Then what are the stories that I make up in my head, right? Because it goes right next to thought. So first is, what do you see and hear? And then it creates a thought in our mind. And that thought could be, darn, he is so lazy. He does not care about me. All he cares is about himself. He comes home, goes and plays games. What the heck? I'm stressed out, blah, blah, blah. So
your mind kind of fills in the blanks.
That's the default mindset, right? Like that we were talking about. And then it goes to, then it creates feelings within us. So then the feelings is, then I am mad, I am upset, I'm angry, I'm going to give him silent, So all these, the feelings starts to come in because of the thought. So the feelings is created by the thought. The thought is created by what you see and hear, that you don't have the full, right? You don't have the full picture. You don't know what's going on, but that's what your mind creates. And then the 4th one is really your action. And then what do? You give him the silent treatment, right? You throw the dishes, you're pounding away in the kitchen, you're like passive aggressive. So I'd say, like, take a look at some of your default behaviors. So what are those default behaviors really, to me, is behaviors that you're not proud of, behaviors that you're unhappy, but mindsets that doesn't make you feel good, mindset that just makes you feel like, I shouldn't be like this, miserable, right?
Yeah, you're assuming the worst, kind of.
Yeah. So I'd say default mindset is really assuming the worst, or the negative, the low energy, I don't want to be here, but I'm here. Why am I here? And then a growth mindset or growth process using the same thing, same scenario. This is how you can create it. Okay, my husband comes in, he goes into the room. Okay, that's what I see and hear. The thought could be, gosh, he must have an exhausting day. Oh, I wonder what was going on in his day. Do you see the difference in how our thoughts can really change and how we can really control that, right? We can think negatively, a default, or we can think positively.
Or more empathically.
Yeah, more empathically. And so when you have those, a more positive thought to that, and you try to come from that lens, what your feelings are? You feel more empathetic. You feel like you want to go and reach out to him. You see what's going on, what's happening. You understand him. And then your action as a result is then that you go and say, hey, hey babe, are you okay? This isn't like you. So, and the results of all those 2 scenarios are very different.
Completely different.
Yeah. You have a scenario where you and your spouse can really be at each other's throat, or you have a scenario where you can dive deeper into intimacy and really bond. And so I think when we talk about this whole process of mindset, it really, like you said, is really all about that. It's how do we change the way we think about scenarios,
or perceive an interaction, or perceive the same event that maybe somebody else would see.
And really take it at facts. Right? Because our thought, what we see and hear, all we see, really, the facts of it, is that he went into a different room. We don't know that he's upset with us. We don't know the other things. Those are things we create within here. Okay? So take things as what it is, and don't make assumptions that are not there.
That are not true.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Those are great strategies. I think anyone can use it in any facet of their life, work, in their personal relationships, in the example that you mentioned, and obviously with friendships and like even being a parent, you know, and that actually is something. So I'm not a parent. Obviously you guys are. You know, you both being mothers and then owning your own businesses and having all these different things happening in your life. And I think, Coua, you spoke about this a little bit when we did our pre-interview the other day. But how do you balance between all of those different hats and all those different roles?
That is
it's not easy.
I think that
and go.
That is such a good question, and it's a question that so many mothers are asking, even the ones that are not working outside of the home, right? Like, I think it naturally, as a woman, we like to pile things up on our plates to the point where it kind of drowns us. Mm-hmm. So then really for me, it's learning about what I truly value and care about that will fit my needs, first of all, and my family's needs. So having a job is important because, number one, I want to be bringing in an income so that I can support my family. So yes, I'm going to have a job, but yet I still have a family. So then let's just talk about that work-family balance then. Mm-hmm. So that means that when I'm at my job, I'm 100% at my job. I'm not thinking about my family. I'm not using any brain power to think about my family as in like I'm not missing them. Because the thing is, I used to do that, and that just drained the heck out of me by the time I got done with my workday, that I would actually get home to my family and be freaking exhausted because I had been thinking about them the whole day. So then when I was with my family, I couldn't even be with them. Do you kind of see how that, you can't be balanced in your life if you're at your job and thinking about
You're like
your family.
Exerting energy on overdrive.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Wow. Okay. And what would you say to that?
Oh, geez. This is probably one of my favorite questions because like Coua, I also have a similar journey in that I realized at the peak of my career, I was a supervisor of a division, and I really grew that division from a 3-person individual to like a team of 14, and I was the unhappiest I have ever been in my entire life. And so it started that journey similar to Coua, her journey of really discovering myself. And part of that goes right to this question that you asked, work-life balance. I'm a workaholic, I'll admit it. People who know me know I love to work. I just love working. It's a passion, and that's why now that I do things that I love, I'm constantly working all the time. But what is that balance for you? I determined 3 things several years ago through my separation, divorce 3 years ago. I really said to myself, what are my top 3 priorities? And I knew it was self-care. I knew it was my children, and I knew it was my business. And so I focused on that. And so I think it's just prioritizing what is really important to us. What is that value to us? So work-life balance for me right now is, I make time for my friendships. I am mom. My 2 kids are here. Like I said, I am mom, and I spend time with them, intentional time, where we're not on gadgets. We're not, we are really just, I plan everything in my work life. It's very rigid and very structured, and I have to be a certain way, right? Really put together. So when I am in my own family with the 3 of us, we are kind of fly by the seat of our pants. So like today, after this show, we're heading to the cities. We're going to go swimming. We're going to go shopping. We're going to go to a movie. Like we just decided that at 8 a.m. this morning when we got up, because we were going to hang out here.
Impromptu trip.
Yeah. So it's really, that's how I balance. I make sure I travel. So things that are really important to me, things that really recharges me. So when you think about self-care, think about activities or things that give you energy. So if activities that are taking your energy away, that's not self-care.
Yeah.
So let's say people will say, self-care is I'm going to the clubs. No, not if it's draining your energy. That's not self-care, okay? Going out of town or a night out, okay, could be a self-care if it's charging your energy. But if it's draining you, you're going out every weekend and it's draining you, that's not self-care. So just notice your energy. I'd say energy is the best defining factor in self-care and work-life balance. If your energy is low when you get home, you know you're not taking care of yourself.
So being cognizant of what really works for that rejuvenation.
Yeah.
Because how do you fill other people's cups? You guys are both in the helping field.
Yeah.
You're essentially working with people all day, every day, you know? And so if that's what you're choosing to do as a career, you are essentially helping refill parts of their cup. How do you do it if yours is empty?
Absolutely.
So I love that very
Absolutely.
much.
Yes.
So you spoke about this a little bit in that, but being a single mother, you know, you're starting this, and I saw this because I shared it and I loved it. This concept of healing and allowing women to feel empowered, just being divorced women, and we spoke specifically in the Hmong community. Can you tell us more about that retreat that you have coming up and what that means to you and why it's important?
Yeah, it's so important to me. So divorce is the second most traumatic incident besides the death of a loved one. So that's how traumatic it is on a person. I'd say for myself, and I'd say the same thing is probably for my ex too. And I think that any situation in our life, whether traumatic, if we don't have a way to heal it, it's still there. And healing is a journey. It's not going to be fixed right away. So for my journey 3 years ago, I really, didn't have the opportunity to really dig deep. I was so focused on, okay, now I have myself and my 2 kids. How am I going to put a roof over their head, take care of them? That was my primary focus. Let's get this business to where it needs to be to sustain and take care of my kids. So I really became laser focused on that. And then the second year, of course, my business and kids are primary, but I started to really dig deep. And I have been doing this for the last 6 years, even prior to my separation and divorce, is really look at what is it about me that I do not like. It's calling those skeletons in the closet out.
Facing yourself.
And it's facing yourself, because really who we can change is ourself. We can influence other people, but we can't change them. They got to do that on their own. We can only fix ourselves, our mindset, who we are, what our attitude, and what we choose to be on a day in and day out basis. And so I really did a lot of work of that. And going back to this retreat, why it's so passionate for me is that this is hard work to look at yourself in the mirror and said, you know what, I really messed up in that area in my marriage. I really did. I'm not guilty. I mean, I'm not the only one that is innocent in this. I am a guilty partner as well.
Taking ownership of that.
Yeah, taking ownership of the fact that this marriage did not fall apart because of just one person. I was a contributor as well. And so it's really looking in the mirror to say, you know what are these qualities about myself that I don't like? Right?
You can speak in Hmong.
Okay, can I speak?
I do not like. For our non-Hmong speakers,
you will see me do that because
I do. We do Hmonglish all the time. Go ahead, feel free. We did that.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I work with so many Hmong people. But I see nowadays, and it really makes me sad because I value love. So my essence is love, and I value love. I value relationships. I value family. I'm really all about people. And so I had to really look at myself in the mirror to say, when was I not a good person to another person? Because I need to shape up. And so talking about the healing process, healing is 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards, right? And it's a lot of hard work. And oftentimes we don't want to face it because it means we have to change our habits, our behaviors. And those are so tough because our mindset and our wiring has been a certain way for so many decades, right? And so in order to push against that, it will take energy, it will take work, and it will take all this stuff. And we don't want to do it.
And I think that wiring is key. That wiring is trying to protect yourself and not necessarily always taking the easy route, but it is a route that is less challenging.
It's
because
comfortable.
You're protecting. Yeah, it's comfortable.
It's comfortable.
Exactly. That's the perfect word to
and
use.
Our brain does not like to work.
Yeah.
If it can create habits out of anything, that's what our brain does. Psychology is driving. Okay. Boom, we got it down. Now it's now
like
in
autopilot.
It's now autopilot.
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
And so regarding my Hmong women retreat that's focused on divorced women or single moms or even separated women that are really just trying to take care of their families and trying to heal or trying to rebuild and create relationships. I want it to be where nowadays what I see is people jump into one relationship after another and the cycle continues and it never breaks because we're too scared to look in the mirror to say, this is what we need to fix about ourselves. And just taking ownership for us. You don't need to take ownership of someone else's responsibility in this, but take ownership of your own stuff, your own BS, right? And so I feel that when we truly heal and we truly look at ourselves and build that happiness within ourselves, so right? Whether we have someone by our side or not, we feel so complete. And we don't need that person to fill our bucket, but instead we come together as partners and feel a separate bucket that is really really
You're
that we both share.
You complement each other.
You're complementing, enhancing one another.
Absolutely. And so I think
that's where a lot of the anxiety comes from, though, right? Like when it doesn't have to be divorce, although that is very traumatic. That's a huge change. Like everything's different. Could just be a breakup.
Absolutely.
The anxiety of like, am I ever going to find somebody else? The anxiety of like, will I find love? And then you're so quickly like willing to just like take in someone else that maybe you hadn't really set certain standards for, and that you never fully took the time to heal.
Absolutely.
So this retreat, parts of it I saw was just you teaching them strategies of letting go of certain things that you cannot change, but then also building on what are some things that you are proud of. So I love that so much. And when is that going to be?
That's going to be April 16th, 17th, and 18th. And it's going to be in Minnesota, Eden Prairie, yes. There's an Edina, too. I better not get that right. Eden Prairie.
I'll link that also. But
yeah, that would be great. I mean, I think we want to make it accessible to women. We understand that for Hmong,
self-care and self-love, man.
It's
You
just
got
so
to.
important.
With anyone, not just females, but I think specifically in this, because we are all three Hmong women, we know how important it is to have that self-love and self-care before you can put somebody else or add somebody else into your life. So one of the most commonly asked questions, because you guys are in the helping field, you spoke about this earlier, but being able to rejuvenate yourself. What are some of those things for you guys? You travel.
Yeah, I do.
And you dance and sing.
Yes. So cool. Like she was saying, I've been a dancer since I was very little, whether it's traditional Hmong dance or whatever. So dancing is one thing that is a joy for me. I don't do traditional dancing anymore, but I still like to dance. I love to travel. Like I love being in nature. So I love hiking, and I do this solo because really it's about recharging myself, and it's also when I need it. When I need it, I just go. I just get a plane ticket and I'm out and I'm going. And
that's
I got
the wondrous
time.
thing of being able to own your own business. Also,
it is.
You don't
it
have
really is.
those kind of parameters.
Yeah, very very grateful for the freedom and flexibility that being your own boss has to offer.
But you created it yourself, also. So.
Thank you.
What do you do? You're busy though, anyway.
I am.
Aside from building an entire home from scratch, what do you do?
I'm not quite at Yengyee's level yet. I hope to one day be able to do that type of rejuvenation. But for right now, honestly, my rejuvenation is filling up my cup. And I do that by being able to work on my business, right? Because after I work in my business, honestly, I'm so energized.
That's how you know it's a passion and not work.
Yeah. Exactly. Like I can go home to my family after I work in my business, even after a full work day at my 9 to 5, and still just be like welcoming them with open arms, because I'm just so excited to see them, because I was able to fill up my own cup.
That's great. That's how I feel about this podcast too, honestly. Like I have a 9 to 5 job. I work 40 hours a week. I do a bunch of other things too. But when I have the opportunity to just sit down with anyone for a pre-interview, or even just like these types of segments that are filmed, I get super excited. I'm like always annoying my husband, like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm meeting X, Y, and Z, and they're doing X, Y, and Z. And like, there's so many things that, like, when it becomes something that you love so much, it's not exerting energy. It's almost like refilling that energy cup. So with this segment, I basically gathered a bunch of questions from viewers and just other, friends and family and things like that they really wanted to have some life coaching advice from you guys. And they did learn a lot about your services and things like that. So the first question is, I was a stay-at-home mom, S-A-H-M, stay-at-home mom, for 5 years, raising my 2 children. When I was offered my old job back, it was difficult for me to adjust back into working full-time. A part of the reason for this is because of the responsibilities that would need to be picked up by my husband, which was also difficult for him to adjust to. What would have been advice that you would have given me when I made this change to transition easier for my husband, myself, and my kids?
All right, I will go first. So first of all, I would say that what you are feeling is 100% completely normal. And with that said, though, it doesn't need to be normal, if that makes any sense. And I just say that because, like, what we've been talking about is essentially that you get to create your experiences, right? So if you could go back to when you went back to work, I would have sat down. What I would have done is sat down with my husband and said, hey, I am going to be going back to work full time. How is this going to affect our life? And how do we want our life to look like, right? Like sit down and come up with kind of like a vision or a goal for how our family dynamic is going to look, because obviously that's a huge change to how you have been living your life. Get everybody on board, talk to your kids, and let them know the changes that are coming up as well. And like I said, get everybody on board and just slowly chip away at that plan, knowing that, yep, we are all 100% in this. And yes, this is going to be hard, but we are going to get there. We're going to get to our new normal.
It's like a team effort.
Right.
And I remember seeing this in one of your videos too, is that, and this actually was something I've never thought about, but you said, I don't have expectations from my husband and my husband doesn't have expectations from me about chores.
Right.
And tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, that wasn't always how it was. Like I didn't just marry him and that was how I was. I had to grow into the wife that didn't expect anything from her husband, because he is his own person. I am my own person. Like Yengyee has been telling us, we cannot control anyone else besides ourselves. We can only influence others. And what really changed my perspective on knowing that I don't expect anything of him is that quote, like, be the change you want to see, right? So once I really grasped that meaning, that's when I started changing myself. And by doing that, he obviously caught on. And now it is to that point of, like, he sees me doing stuff. And if there's anything that needs to be picked up, he just naturally does it.
It's like contagious.
Exactly. Exactly.
What a really good psychological, like, what is that, like, reverse psychology? Your PhD. Like, it is just that, right? Like, you need to be able to not force somebody or feel like you need to control somebody to do things. I need that advice.
Right.
So I needed to hear that too.
Like Yengyee was saying, you're just influencing them. They see you. Your husband, like, I would say that outside of God, like for me, outside of God, my husband is like the most important relationship in my life, right? Because we are with each other like 24/7. He is my biggest and main supporter. So if he doesn't have my back, it's like it won't work. Honestly, it's not. It will still work, but it's gonna be a lot harder. So if you have your spouse on your side, just trust me on this. It will be a lot easier. This is the part where it's so important to know yourself. Like, what are you willing to do? Because you know that you're going back to work. So what are you willing to put forth? And what are you willing to let go of?
Yeah.
So that you can really continue to live your new life, right? Like, yeah, maybe you're expecting him to pick up more chores around those. I don't know what it is. But maybe a part of you is just like, okay, I just have to let that go for now until I can figure this out. I don't know.
I see.
Yeah.
That's difficult.
Right.
I think that individual probably need more of a follow-up, if anything. And maybe I can refer him to your coaching service.
For sure.
I know another question that had came in actually this morning was, how do you define success and also fear? And how does that relate to one another?
How do you define success and fear? Fear, I think you just have to accept that fear is part of life. It's our innate response, fight and flight.
Kind of goes back to the default mindset, right?
It is.
A little bit, yeah.
It is. And so you have to just do it and push yourself. Every time that you do something, for example, and I give this very simple example of a baby learning to walk, right? It's, I'm a little afraid. I'm afraid, oops, I fall, I hurt myself, ow, I'm crying, whatever. But they keep trying. And it's the same thing. How do you minimize your fear is when you keep pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone. You keep pushing yourself towards things that maybe you're not likely going to do. Like, for example, traveling solo for me, right? It's very scary for a lot of people.
Fear of the unknown.
Yeah, really. I'm very afraid. And I was as well. I had those same kind of feelings. But it comes down to trusting myself and having that plan. And that, yes, accepting that fear is going to be part of it. And that fear can be there, but I also know myself enough and trust myself enough that I have some plans in place. I'm very fly by the seat, but I know that I'm going to have a place to sleep because my hotel is booked. I know I have a car so that, it can take me places. So, I plan enough for yourself to feel comfortable. Always have a plan, but at the same time, you have to continuously push yourself outside of that comfort zone. So when it comes to success is very personal to each one of us. Success to you is very different than it is to me.
Success for me is combing my hair.
Yeah,
morning, so.
Exactly. No, it's very, very true. And I think that if we can talk about success from that lens, yep. and we can talk about success in that, is it from my lens or is it from society's lens or is it from whose lens am I being successful for? Because sometimes...
That's a good point.
Yeah, and like Coua mentioned at the beginning, she did all the right steps and so did I. I followed all the correct steps. I went to college, got married, had kids, but I was so unhappy. And so we have to stop and say, what really is success to us? Because we've been defined or expected that success is a certain way. The nice house, the cars, I have
and those
all
are all
of that.
milestones that
Yes.
I think anyone across cultures and genders and whatever, that is what you normally accomplish in a certain order, right? And so that is societal.
Yeah. So it's like, I think we don't stop to say what is success to us. We say success is measured by materialistic markers in our life. And so I think it's really important to know what success is for you. Success to me is really, doing stuff for other people, altruism, and having fun, enjoying my life and being happy, like truly happy with who I am. So that's success. I mean, when you talk about success, it's really not materialistic things. It's really your heart. What does your heart beat for? My heart beats for my kids. My heart beats for who I am authentically every day. Do I show up myself, like fully myself every day? Like that makes me the happiest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we spoke about this too, but does it have, and we'll get to you on fear and success, but does it have anything to do with understanding who you are? So we spoke about this, that you, as a part of the services that you provide in your coaching business is personality testing. And I know you mentioned it's really used as a baseline. Understanding who you are first needs to happen. Yeah. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really looking inside to say, who is Yengyee? You know, who does she want to be? You know, what is she like? You know, it's asking you the difficult questions. And I'll just say anything in life, it starts with you. Whether it's career, family, whether it's change behavior, any kind of success, any kind of the life that you want to be, whatever, if you're not looking inside to say, who am I? What am I? And you don't have this person within yourself, right? I don't care where you are. If you're the CEO of a big company, if you're the president of the United States, you're going to break. You're going to have that pivotal, that breaking point. Yep. If you don't know who you are. You've been masked. You've been living a masked life, you know? So everything, you know, I'm sure that's why Coua does it too, but that's why I do leadership. I do life, leadership, business coaching. It comes from different lenses, but really it's all about figuring that person out that's within in order for that person to really live that person within out.
And being able to accept that that could be a changing concept.
Absolutely.
Because you're growing, right?
Absolutely.
Growth mindset.
Yeah, and you should be. You should be evolving to be more and more. I mean, your core values are going to be your core values, but you're going to evolve to be more and more yourself. And I have a leadership course, just very quickly, life-inspired, find your life-inspired leadership program. The course is really about on purpose, right? So we all have different purposes in our life. And I coach a lot of people around this because they'll come to me, they're like, I want to be fit. I want to make money. I want to do this and I want to do that. And I'm like, and then when we coach around it, they're like, oh gosh, no, right now I have no time to get fit. So we're always on purpose, meaning there's a point in my life where I stayed home and be mom. That was my purpose then. Now, what is my purpose now? So our purpose is changing, evolving with who we are and with our scenario within our life. We're not being fake when we're truly just who we are, but we're growing within. Like I'm figuring myself out. Like I love to travel. I love to solo travel. I didn't know that, but I'm figuring that part out.
You wouldn't have known that unless you did it, right?
Exactly. And so I think it's really, you know, that on purpose, our different purposes in our life serves a different stage, and we're always growing with that stage. And when we're not, that's when we feel that dissonance. And when we're not moving to a certain level that we should be in, I feel like environment, whatever is
something
going to,
change,
something's
right?
going to like force us to change regardless.
The dissonance only happens if you have a goal of what you wish and like what you wish you would have or wish you could accomplish. Because there is no dissonance if you're staying stagnant.
Dissonance happens when something is not going right for you.
Right.
Whether
it's not quite where you want to be.
Yeah. You're not quite where you want to be somehow. And
so you got to realize it first, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And what about you? For, you know, that question was basically fear and success. Do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
So in regards to fear, I don't like to look at fear as good or bad, right? Like fear, it's just neutral. It's what you make it mean. And
it's an interesting concept.
My perspective is, what are you making the fear mean, right? If it's there, might as well use it to support whatever it is that you're doing. And an example that I have of this is I went to a networking event on Friday, so just yesterday, and I was scared to go, right? Like, oh crap, this is kind of last minute, but you know, I'm just gonna go. So
kind of like this podcast.
Yeah, like So then I got to the place where the networking event was, and there wasn't a clear sign as to like where the heck these people are. So then immediately I got into like panic mode. Like I was fearful. I'm like, I made a mistake. I should just turn around. I should get out of here. This was so stupid. And then it's kind of like, okay, Coua, stop. Like just stop, you know? And
That's a self-talk, right?
Yes, self-talk. And I used the fear that was inside of me to go up to the group that I thought was the networking people, and I introduced myself, right? So you can always use your fear to support you.
Like as a motivator.
Exactly, in whatever it is that you want. So that's
it's like using anxiety to motivate you to do things, because your anxiety makes you feel really uncomfortable. So if you want to go back to like feeling a little bit more comfortable, you've got to be able to break through that. So anxiety sometimes can be good.
Right, exactly. And being uncomfortable, again, it's not a good or bad thing. And a lot of times when you are uncomfortable, that's a really strong indicator that you're growing, right? So just get used to feeling that feeling. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, because otherwise you know that there's red flags, you're probably not growing.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So who wants to be comfortable, right? So one of the last questions is, you know, what advice would you give to somebody who is launching a business? And it's kind of interesting. And I asked you both here for today's segment or today's episode, because there is, you know, you just celebrated 5 years, which is amazing. And I remember the post that you had was that people put, you know, they tried to put doubt in your mind that it wouldn't work or whatever. You know, you celebrated 5 years and that's wonderful. And then for you, you just launched. So what advice would you give to somebody who would like to start their own business?
Do you want to go first this time?
I want to hear from you.
Okay. Okay.
We need a seasoned veteran to go first.
Oh gosh. Here's one of my posts. What I said is, you don't need a lot of money to start a business, but you need a lot of discipline to keep it going.
Can I tell you something? That was actually, and I was going to say this. So you just celebrated 5 years, and I was going to say, and I quote, you don't need a lot of money to start a business. You do need a lot of discipline to keep going. That was legitimately on here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I quoted you. I love that.
Yeah. High five. I say that because it's very true. I separated and divorced in the midst of starting this business. And so I had zero income. Let's just say I had negative income. And so I really had to be very strategic and really push myself. And I am just so grateful. I think in business, networking, but your relationships. So I'm a relationship person, but relationships are so important. I would not be where I'm at without the people in my life. And this is why I say don't burn your bridges. Really, I mean, don't. If you don't have to. There's some bridges that are meant to be burnt, but
like if they're toxic.
Yeah, if they're toxic. But I was able to get a lot of my work because of my previous career. So it's funny how I started a totally different business and career, meaning, having different things and services from a social worker and a supervisor. A lot of my contacts was still from that professional world. So I had contracts with the state and different government entities because of that. So let people know. And honestly, if you build your business based on integrity, quality work, and just being a good person, people want you to succeed as much as you do. Mm-hmm. They see what you have to offer. And, I've been building my brand for the last 5 years, and you have to be your word. You have to be who you are. I think integrity is the utmost important quality when it comes to building a business. And then staying very disciplined, really following through on what you say you're going to deliver. I'd rather like anybody under promise me and over deliver than to over promise me and under deliver, so
Absolutely.
It's really important that don't be in a hurry to build a business, you miss the foundational work. Mm-hmm. I work with so many businesses right now that are, 10 years down the road and their foundation is cracked because they didn't put the work into that. I work with organizations that have not had a strategic plan in over a decade. They don't even know where they're going. They're just shooting in the dark.
They're just surviving.
Yeah, they're just
Why
surviving.
would you want to survive when you can thrive?
Yeah.
Right?
And so it's so important, I think, when it comes to starting a business, the part about starting a business is easy. So starting a business is really registering it online, with the state and then with the federal government. But it is really, that's why I say discipline. Mm-hmm. Discipline is what will take you to, to the rest of the way, is you becoming.
You said too, financially disciplined, emotionally, mentally disciplined.
Absolutely. So all those things. But that's what I say. Just keep going and believe in yourself, because some of your worst critics is probably going to be your family, and not in a bad way, but they feel the fear for you.
Yeah.
And so they feel it even more intensely because they're personally connected to you. But don't let that stop you if you have a vision and mission in mind, and you know your why, and you know who you are. I think it takes a really strong individual that just really knows who they are to just continue to persevere through everything. And
that's really where it starts, right? You got to, again, know who you are, know what services you want to provide, and know what you want to accomplish in the world. And it starts with that. So authenticity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to that, Coua?
I love all of that so much. So,
it's like ditto.
Thank you so much, Yengyee. Yeah. That really spoke to me. And I think for me, like I said, I just started my business just this year. And I would say I was able to do that because I have such a strong why. And the thing with my why is that it is very personal. It didn't just happen overnight. I've been building myself personally for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And this is just like a kind of a milestone in my journey then, right? Mm-hmm. So because I have that strong why, I am able to put myself out there day in and day out, even when all I hear is like crickets. Mm-hmm. And I would have to say, I just recently created my Facebook page, and that was really scary for me. But again, like I was talking about the fear, I didn't use that fear against me. I used that fear to support me. And it was really scary for me because, like Yengyee was saying, my family, that's who I think is judging me, right? Oh my gosh, they're looking at me. They might think this is dumb or whatever, or that I'm going to fail.
Side note, I supported it immediately.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. But really, I just had to push past that and I was able to do that because of my why, right? Mm-hmm. No, my family's not going to understand. And the thing is, it's not their job to understand. It's my job to understand. And as long as I am holding on strongly to that, and I know and believe that I can do this work, then that is what matters. Mm-hmm.
And I think it resonates. It goes back to being contagious. Yeah. So what I'm seeing is, number one, you can sometimes be your own worst enemy. So the anxieties and all those things, this negative self-talk. So you got to defeat that and you got to overcome that. And then next is kind of like your family and your friends, because they are so personal to you and you care a lot about what they think of you. So if you're going to launch a business or a podcast, let's say, you care very much about their support because you want to do justice by them. You want to make sure that they're proud of you also. But being able to separate and manage, between those two concepts, I guess, is really important. So,
what I like to say is everybody comes from their own. You are not me. I'm not you. Everyone comes from their own perspective, fears, beliefs, and stuff. And so I think if you keep that in mind, you can be able to separate yourself. Just knowing that if my family, when they communicate with me, they're communicating from their own perspective, belief, fears. So I don't take it personally. Or when my friends communicate that to me, because they're coming from their own perspective, beliefs and fears and their own anxieties and their own things about maybe what they heard, what they've seen. And so when we all keep that in mind, that we are not each other, we are very uniquely ourselves, and that we all have a brand to, and I think in our business, in our world, it's very competitive. But when you know yourself, you stand apart. I'm Yengyee. I'm going to attract a different type of audience than Coua, and different people. We have our own different tribes. And this podcast, there's a lot of podcasts, but you're going to stand out. So I think don't be afraid just because maybe you see that a business field is congested, that, I can't go in there. No, it's so needed. We need Coua to do what she does. We need you to do what you do, and that there's so much abundance. If we think from an abundance mindset instead of
like an oversaturated mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. And that we're all very different, and that don't take anybody's words personally when you know what your why is. Yeah, I don't get bothered.
Who else is going to be able to tell the jokes I tell? Right?
Yeah.
Right. I like that so much because one of the questions that you sent over, Xiong, was, what makes your coaching business unique, right? And I wrote down exactly what Yengyee just said. What makes my coaching business unique is essentially me. Exactly. Yes. My energy, my vibe, my commitment level, that all looks different from Yengyee's, or another coach's.
Nobody's in competition.
Exactly.
No, absolutely.
We're all here to just enhance one another.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I thank you guys so much today for joining me and driving 3 hours and an hour and a half. And I am actually forever changed by this moment. I want to tell you guys, it's not just for show, but it's been just so encapsulating, being able to sit down and talk about all these things that matter, not just the meaning of life, but just things that are like fear and being able to get along with people and getting to know yourself. So this has been really meaningful for me, and I thank you guys for that.
Thank you. It's been fun.
It has been fun.